We're chatting with comedian James Gregory, his website, funniestman.com. And James, I guess if you're going to brand yourself as the funniest man in America, then you got to be able to bring it, right?
That's right. Now, here's what I've said for a long time, though. The funniest man in America, that's not really a big deal because I've been doing this so long that when I started, America was just 13 states.
Hey, James is going to be at the Harvester Performance Center in Rocky Mount this Friday night, October 19th. It goes on stage at 8 a.m. Tickets available at harvester-music.com. James, you've been to the Harvester. I think this is at least trip number 3 or 4 right now.
Yeah, I think I've been there, 3 times before. It's been a while since I've been there, and I'm looking forward to it. It's always fun going there. Big turnout. And I always mention this to all the listeners to your show in case they don't know this. This is a completely family-friendly show. In other words, any age groups can come and enjoy the show.
Well, and that's important because some comedians obviously aren't so family-friendly. Talk us into the decision behind that. When did that start? Or maybe it wasn't a decision. Maybe that's the way your comedy's always been.
Well, here's the thing. I used to work, when my career started, I started doing my comedy in comedy clubs. A lot of people still do, and there's a lot of comedy clubs out there. I do an occasional comedy club, but when I started switching over to theaters. See, in theaters, it's not like a nightclub. In a nightclub, they have a limit on age. You can't go into a nightclub that serves alcohol under the age of 21, in some states 18. So when I started doing theaters 15, 20 years ago, really, I noticed that people would come to the show. They'd bring their parents, were like 15 years old, 12 years old, Of course, I had never used bad language anyway, but I'm thinking, thank goodness that I'm doing this right because I wouldn't want to upset people who come to the show as a family. Yeah. So there is very few comedy shows touring around the country that's suitable for all age. Sometimes we'll get, sometimes about 25% of the audience sometimes will be underage people. So it's always good to see that.
Right. All ages can enjoy. Families can come together. It's a neat experience. Hey, take us back to those clubs, the early days. I think it was the Punchline in Atlanta, right, where you kind of got your start?
That's where I started my career, exactly.
Tell us what those early days were like for James Gregory.
Well, that might be kind of boring.
All right, then tell us what the later days were like.
What is your age, Kyle?
Oh, I can't reveal that on the air.
Oh, okay.
Mid-30s. How about that? That'll give you something to work with, right?
All right. Well, see, you may not remember this, and I'll give you a little bit of history about the comedy business in heartland of America. Prior to 1982, the only place that you could see live stand-up comedy was New York, Boston, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Believe it or not. There was no such thing. If you lived in Kentucky, if you lived in Virginia, if you lived in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, the only way you could see a stand-up comedian would have been on television. So when the first one that opened in the Southeast was in 1982. And all the shows in those days was Tuesday through Sunday. And Tuesday was open mic night, or what they call amateur night. So me, along with a couple of my friends, would go out there every Tuesday, not to be part of the show, but just to watch the show because we were fans of comedy. But I had friends who thought I was funny. They always thought I was funny, and they kept daring me to go over an amateur night.
And one day you took them up on it.
And I started doing that. So that I kind of put my foot in the water, so to speak. I just decided, I'm really going to dedicate myself to this, and see how this works out. So a few starving years, in the entertainment business, you have a few starving years,
Well, I heard you say in another interview that it wasn't long after you started that you decided to become a professional. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Because like all of us, I'll give you an example. If you, right now at this moment, if you were not interviewing me, but let's say that you were interviewing say Jay Leno or Jerry Seinfeld or Ray Romano or Tim Allen. All those guys would tell you the same thing I just said. Every single one of them started their career on amateur night, working for free on amateur night. Because, see, in this line of work, there's no other way to get into this business. I mean, it's not, you can't get a diploma for it. You can't graduate from it. It's not like an electrician or a plumber. You can't just walk into a business and say, I'm a comedian, how much will you pay me this week? You know?
Right.
So that's how we all start, you know, and some go on to, very few people go on to what we call the super status level, you know, they become household names. And then you have people like me who've done this for years. I'm still making a living, and my double wide has not been repossessed.
Oh, you're probably not giving yourself quite enough credit.
I've had a great life. I've seen a lot of people. In the course of my career, I have performed in 38 of the 50 states, most of Canada. I've gone overseas a few times. I've done shows in Italy, Greece, Spain, and I did one tour in the Middle East and entertained the troops. So there's all types of people out there, and most of them are wonderful people. So I love seeing people and meeting them. So it's been a great life.
We're chatting with James Gregory. He's going to be at the Harvester Performance Center in Rocky Mount this Friday night. Tickets are available, but not many. You better act fast. Go to harvester-music.com. James, I've talked to some other comedians, and they say that step up, becoming a professional, can be kind of scary. I think it's easy to get 5 or 10 minutes worth of material, right? It's harder to come up with an entire show, 30 minutes or an hour. How tough is that?
That's why all comedians start as I said, opening act. You know, like in the comedy club world, there's always 3 comedians at every show. You know, you have the opening guy or the MC, so to speak, and then the middle act, and then the headline, the guy who can do the most and is the funniest. So we all started being an MC or a host. Well, you only have to do like 10 or 12 minutes, you know. And then as you get better and better, they'll put you in what they call a feature spot, which you have to do like 25 or 30 minutes. And then the headliner is always required to do 45 minutes to an hour. And I know a lot of guys who still make a good living, and they're still in the comedy club world. They're still in the middle spot. They're still feature acts. But they make a good living, and they're still doing it, you know. So, and then time goes on, and you have people like me. I've been to these places, especially around the Southeast, so many times that people become familiar with me. They know about me. I have some name recognition, and I don't want to brag, but I'm funny.
That's not bragging if it's true, right?
That's right. So it's worked out real good, and people love to laugh. You'd be surprised how many people that I meet. It doesn't matter if it's Rocky Mount, Virginia, or if it's Atlanta, Georgia. I always meet somebody who will tell me this is the first time I've ever seen live comedy. So there's a lot of people, your listeners right now, you'd be surprised what a great percentage of those people have never seen live, close-up comedy. You would think that everybody by this time has seen comedy at least once. So many people who have not done that, so this is a good opportunity to come out and see what it's like. And one thing about the Harvester Performance Center, it's a great venue. It's very, what I call intimate. It's not a big sprawling place. Right. In other words, if you're on the last row in the back, you're still close to the stage.
Exactly.
Which is great for live stand-up comedy. It's really great.
Well, you get that connection with the audience, I think, right?
Exactly right.
Folks, if you haven't seen live comedy, or maybe if you have, go see James Gregory this Friday night. He's at the Harvester in Rocky Mount. James, let me ask you something else, because you do tour. You go to a lot of the same places like the Harvester. You try and come up with new stuff. Is that difficult, or is it just does that come easy for you?
Because here's what happened, Kyle. People ask me this all the time, especially journalists and the news media people. I never do a new show. There's no such thing as a new show, because that would be very foolish. What I always do, I take some of the old, mix it with some of the new, and it turns out to be a great show. And here's what I mean by that. See, there's a lot of people who, just because they saw they will see the show this coming Friday. They might have seen the show before, but maybe not the last time. They may have saw me 5 years ago. Also, they usually bring somebody, like a neighbor or a friend, and it's their first time.
Right.
And even before the show, if they see me in the parking lot, coming to the lobby, I have people who start requesting, "What are you going to do the fat lady routine?
Right.
Don't forget to do that routine about so and so." So if you do a show and you don't do any of what we call the classy stuff, then you get complaints.
Right.
It's like, say, for instance, if you were interviewing a singer, not a comedian right now, but a singer. Let's suppose that you were interviewing Kenny Chesney, for example, and there's certain venues that Kenny Chesney goes to. Like, so, of course, he works those big coliseums, as we know, and he has some of those places where he goes every 12 to 18 months. Well, you would not say to Kenny Chesney, when we see your show this coming weekend, are you going to have all brand new songs?
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because Kenny Chesney goes on stage, he's on stage for an hour and a half. The average length of a song is 3.5 to 4 minutes per song. So people become fans of artists. And so when Kenny Chesney shows up, they expect the old classic song. He's always going to have a new song, but they're more concerned about their favorite songs. And as time goes on, that's what happens with comedians. People who are fans, they know some of those routines. So you'll be disappointed if you don't do the ones they really like. So I just learned as the years have gone by to kind of mix it and match it, you know.
I think it's working out perfectly for you, James.
It's worked out good for me.
Yeah. We're talking with James Gregory. He's at the Harvester in Rocky Mount this Friday night. Couple more questions for you here, James, because this is a lot of fun. I think a great comedian once said, "The good ones borrow and the great ones steal." Who did you steal from coming up?
None.
All original stuff.
None.
Well, some guys informed your style, right?
Now, here's what happened. When I first started, see, I'm more of a storyteller than I am. I don't tell like what we call machine gun type comedians, like any other one, you know, set up punch, you know.
Right.
So one advantage that I had, I think, when I started was I would tell funny stories instead of telling funny jokes, you know. Now, I will say this, though. I didn't steal any stuff material, but I would take a subject that they were familiar with and give my own version of that, you know. When I first started, I forget what comedian it was. There was a comedian that used to have some jokes about TV commercials, you know. And I said, oh, you know. So I started doing a few jokes about TV commercials, but they were not his TV, not the ones he was doing.
Well, that makes sense.
That. But some comedians do start. You may steal a few jokes inadvertently, you know. But keep in mind, when we all start, we're amateurs. We don't know it's going to be our job anyway.
Right.
You know? We've all got regular jobs, and we're just trying to have fun on a Tuesday night. But you are correct about that, though. There's always, you have to go back and use some other comedians' funny stuff when you start, you know.
Or at least the style, anyway.
The style, you know, you won't do that for very long, though, because somebody will put a stop to that.
Right.
You know?
Right. Well, how about some of these guys and girls you've crossed paths with? You made a lot of friends in this industry here. You guys have a good time? You
mean comedy-wise?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of comedians that I've met over the years, and some of them are names that you wouldn't recognize. They're not household names that I've known for years and years and years. But in the course of my career back in the 80s, for example, I've done shows with Jay Leno, and we all know who Tim Allen is. Tim Allen started in Home Improvement and Last Man Standing, you know. I knew Tim Wilson when Tim Wilson was only making about $600 a week, you know. So we all start that way. And then I had the opportunity, as the years have gone by, to be a part of a big star show. In other words, that were not comedians. Like, I've done shows I've known Kenny Chesney for a lot of years. I've done a couple of shows with Kenny Chesney. And the late George Jones, I've done shows with him. And Reba McEntire, and Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers. So I've met a lot of people. And back in 1987, 88, that time, you know, Randy Travis was the biggest fan in country music around 87, 88. You know? And he was a big fan of mine, and I love him. And We did a lot of shows. We did shows in Las Vegas, Nevada, Lake Tahoe, Nevada, and we did a tour of what they call the theaters in the round in the New England area. I did a lot of shows up in Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. A lot of people out there. A lot of them.
Pretty neat stuff. James, we'll let you run. Thanks for spending some time with us.
I expect everybody to be there Friday, 8 p.m. It's gonna be funny. And besides, I got bills to pay.
Don't we
November
all?
the 1st is coming out pretty soon.
You're right. Hey, James, thank you so much. Folks want to learn more, buy your stuff, funniestman.com.
And I appreciate you, Kyle.
Well, thank you, James. This
I
has
like
been
that
fun.
name,
I know you do.
I told you before we started talking that I have a dear friend I've known for years. His name was Kyle. Kyle is not a very common name. It's a unique name.
Hey, James, thanks a lot, man. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you.